Welcome, everybody. I also want to take a moment to recognize some of the special guests that we have in the room today or online. State Representative and Waltham City Council Person Tom Stanley. Thanks for being here. We have Abigail Kuhn from Senator Mike Barrett's office. Thank you for joining us. From the Waltham City Council, we have council members Colleen Bradley MacArthur, Joseph LaCava, and Jonathan Paz. I believe all three of them are joining us via Zoom today. Thanks for being here. And from the Waltham School Committee, this is their home base where they have their meetings, so very familiar face. Thank you, Liz Al-Jamal and John Prasica for being with us today. So in addition to these honored guests, we're joined today by WPY board members, donors and foundation representatives who help fund this work, and community members who are interested in learning more. Thanks to all of you for being here as we present our Wraparound Waltham Year 3 evaluation findings. Thank you, Reverend. Wraparound Waltham is a multi-agency effort to provide a warm welcome and holistic wraparound supports to newcomer immigrant Latinx students and their families, with the ultimate goal of increasing graduation rates among English learners in Waltham. This is a truly collaborative effort, and it has been genuinely, truly one of the greatest privileges of my career to work alongside such talented and dedicated colleagues who welcome and support all students and families with compassion, love, and dignity. I'd like to take a moment now to recognize all of the formal partners in this work. And I say formal because these are the ones that are funded as part of our grant. We've been planning for years. We come to the table, we troubleshoot. There are lots of other partners in the community that we work with, but these are the ones that are sort of part of the family team, part of the internal team. So when I call your organization, please stand and be recognized. And I'd like you to all stay standing until I've read all organization names. And then we'll invite the rest of us to give a round of applause at the end. So folks from Waltham Public Schools, if you could please stand. Children's Charter. Doc Wayne, I'm not sure if we have any folks in person from Doc Wayne.
We're zooming in.
Thank you for being here. The Right to Immigration Institute. And our own wraparound team at Waltham Partnership for Youth. So please join me in giving these organizations a round of applause for working day in and day out. Thank you. You may be seated. They work day in and day out to make sure our newcomer students feel welcomed and supported as they transition to Waltham, their new home community. You'll hear more about the role each of these partners play over the course of today's presentation. I hope that during this presentation, you learn a little more about the experiences of newcomer Latinx students and families in Waltham, gain an understanding of the innovative and multifaceted model we've developed to welcome and support these families, and consider your own role in helping us sustain and expand this important work. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Brian Regan, Superintendent of Waltham Public Schools.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Katie, for pulling this together. I've said to people before, you're an organizer among organizers. I'm always impressed with how your team can pull folks together, and I think the Wraparound Grant is just one huge example of that. When I was applying to be the superintendent of schools back in 2020, pre-pandemic, I remember doing my research on Waltham, and this was just sort of in the early stages, and reading the news that was out there on the school's website about this incredible opportunity. And to have experienced it over the past 3 years has been even more incredible. We are, I recognize, just one relatively small cog in the wheel of partners in terms of the work. But I have to say, maybe next to the city at large, we may be the largest beneficiary of what comes out of the work, as the Wraparound program is, of course, supporting students and families that we are trying to support ourselves within the district. And it's really inspirational when you see the work that's been done. And the last piece I would just like to say is it's a nice tie-in for us as we go forward with the new strategic plan that we're building for the Waltham Public Schools, which talks a lot about community connections and partnerships with agencies, which we know none of us can do this alone. Public schools, other agencies, we're all being asked to do so much, and the only way to support families and kids is to do it together. And I think this is just a really excellent example of how that can be done in a model that I think others should look at. see how truly wraparound programs can work. So I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to just say hello this morning and to be here and be a part of this. We look forward to continued partnerships with this program and others. And it is my pleasure to hand over the microphone to Lauren Lele, who is, I have to read your title, Lauren, I'm sorry, it's I didn't memorize it, Senior Director of Community Benefits and Volunteer Services at Newton Wellesley Hospital. So, welcome.
Thank you, Brian. So good to see everyone here in the room as well as on Zoom. I am here just to tell you a little bit about how this grant came to be. And so the result is really through you can go to this, a determination of need. And the determination of needs have oversight through the Department of Public Health, and there are stipulated guidelines to follow. So a DON project is when a healthcare institution does construction, purchases of equipment, or a combination of those two things. In this case, it was an expansion of surgical services at the MGH West site in Waltham. And what happens is the Community Health Initiative is a part of the DON, and it stipulates that 5% of the total expenditure needs to go back into the community. Of that 5%, 75% actually goes into the local community itself. In this project, it was $1.5 million. And then 25% goes into a statewide fund, $500,000 in this case, to focus on the initiatives throughout the state under the Department of Public Health. As you can see, the goal for CHI is to really focus on strategies and initiatives that are within social determinants of health and focus on inequities in our system. This CHI was a little different in the fact that it was focused solely in Waltham, as opposed to being spread out through multiple communities, which is usually the norm. It also allowed us to work within the Mass General Brigham system because it was actually MGH, an MGH DON, and they reached out to Newton Wellesley to say, while MGH West is in the Waltham community, which is one of your communities, can you oversee and do the process for this DON, which we were very happy to do. And it has allowed us to strengthen those partnerships in Waltham. Next slide. So the engagement process for CHI is really to be transparent and to engage as many members of the community as possible, and really to have the process driven by those community members. So it's the creation of an advisory and allocations committee. And you can see the cross-section of sectors and populations that are represented in that. And that allows for, through the process, to really have diverse discussion and many times robust discussion in terms of what community need looks like. And it's important to have all those people at the table. Next slide. So after all of that occurred, we were able to bring those folks together, and with substantial input from that advisory committee, as well as some really deep dive into data for the community of Waltham and looking at whether that be a focus of housing, focus on senior services, focus on education, and all of the above. We were able to come up with a priority area selection that you see there to address disparities in high school graduation rates among Waltham students, with a focus on recent immigrants and refugees, primarily from Central America and South America. And you can see just one data set point there, that among English learners, the graduation rate is significantly below those of the rest of the population within Waltham High School. You can see it really ranges for students at 80%, and for English learners, it's really hovers around 50%, which is quite compelling. The advisory committee also felt that this was, they really had the appetite that this was a initiative in a priority area that would allow for innovation in looking at how people went about graduating and really factoring in those social determinants of housing insecurity, nutrition insecurity, economic instability, and mental health, as well as others. And you can see too in that box that it very succinctly aligned with the priorities for Newton Wellesley Hospital, being a focus on immigrants, youth, looking at workforce as well as building relationships in the community. Next slide. And so we went about a request for proposal saying that the lead organization had to be within Waltham. And what was unique was that we did say that an automatic partner for anyone had to be the Waltham Public Schools, because we really felt that for this to be successful, we needed to have Waltham Public Schools be a part of it. And so fortunately, with Dr. Regan coming in, he was very supportive of that and really allowed that to flourish. It could be a single organization or collaborative. And it was reviewed by the allocations committee and a selection was made. And at that point, we did bring in Waltham Public Schools to review the application and provide input, given that they were going to be an automatic partner. And so when we look back, 4 years ago, when we brought this committee together, we did actually at the launch of the first committee meeting, did a blue sky exercise. And we said, if you had a $1.5 million to spend in Waltham, what would you spend it on? What would you want to achieve? How would you see change? And what would be the signs of success? And so we had no idea that the result, being Wraparound Waltham, would be an opportunity to truly meet the DON goal for CHI. And those are to really move the dial on an initiative, to drive outcomes, to build strong partnerships, and to make significant impact. And so to provide you all the detail of how that happened and what the impact has been, I would like to introduce Magali Garcia-Clinch, Operations Director with Waltham Partnership for Youth, to tell you more.
So thank you, Lauren. And again, as Lauren mentioned, my name is Magali Garcia-Clinch and I'm the Operations Director with Waltham Partnership for Youth, or WPY for short. And I'm here just to share an overview of wraparound programming and services. So as you just heard in 2019, in response to the Newton Wellesley Hospital DON that Lauren just referenced, and as such, with the goal of increasing graduation rates for newcomer emerging bilingual students in Waltham, our collaborative created Wraparound Waltham. Together with Children's Charter, Doc Wayne, the Right to Immigration Institute, Waltham Public Schools, and WPY as the lead organization, we have spent the last 3 years refining Wraparound's programming and services to a model that helps us achieve our goals of increasing school and community belonging, emotional safety and well-being, and facilitating access to school and community information and services. Next slide, please. So the driving idea behind Wraparound is that if we leverage in-school and out-of-school resources to address students' academic and non-academic needs, essentially wrapping our arms around students, we will see higher graduation rates and lower dropout rates among this population. All staff currently leading wraparound activities across all agencies are bilingual Spanish speakers, as we strive to meet students and families' linguistic and cultural needs across all service areas. We engage with the students we call, quote, wraparound students, as well as their families in several interconnected ways, which I will now briefly share about. So the primary way that students are connected to Wraparound is through the Welcome Class. The Welcome Class is a multi-week orientation class co-taught in Spanish by WPY Wraparound staff and WPS educators. The Welcome Class takes place during the school day, meeting during the school's enrichment block, which makes the class accessible to students who may have out-of-school responsibilities, but also honors the importance of students' academic courses. The purpose of the Welcome Class is for newcomer students to build relationships with each other and trusted adults within their first several months in Waltham. The Welcome Class also introduces students to community resources and helps them navigate important school systems and resources so that they are better prepared to continue their education here in Waltham beyond the Welcome Class. Another critical aspect of Wraparound is academic case management. At Waltham High School, the academic case manager is a WPS educator specifically focused on supporting newcomer students. The academic case manager co-teaches the Welcome Class and also conducts regular check-ins with Wraparound students. Check-ins often lead to the development of individual goals and strategies, school-based referrals for tutoring, counseling, academic support, and more. Importantly, the academic case manager consults, coordinates, and works in close collaboration with other WPS educators and staff, as well as other wraparound partners to support students' individual growth and development. And in an effort to get to know students more fully and meet their non-academic needs, WPY wraparound staff conduct needs assessments with each student in welcome class. Following these needs assessments, our staff often make referrals to community resources that will support students and their families with accessing food, housing, healthcare, and other vital resources both in and out of school. Two areas where our wraparound students are often in need of additional, more robust support are mental health services and immigration services. Accordingly, through the needs assessment process, our staff refers students to our other wraparound partners to receive these kinds of supports. Led by our wraparound clinical partners, Children's Charter and Doc Wayne, we are proud to be able to offer wraparound students mental health support services that are at no cost, in Spanish, youth-centered, and trauma specialized. Children's Charter runs both individual and group support sessions, which you'll hear a little bit about later, while Doc Wayne offers sports-based group therapy, all of which wraparound students have access to upon referral by WPY and WPS staff. Additionally, both organizations visit the welcome class to discuss their services, with Children's Charter leading a group support session with students to introduce them to the idea of mental health group support. Led by another one of our wraparound partners, the Right to Immigration Institute, or TREE for short, we are also able to provide immigration support services to all wraparound students and their families. TREE offers advice and representation related to immigration, as well as housing, public health benefits, family, criminal, and employment matters affected by immigration status. TREE also joins each welcome class to introduce their organization, as well as lead an immigration legal Q&A session with wraparound students. And finally, we have the Waltham Welcome Center. A collaboration between WPY and WPS, the Waltham Welcome Center serves as a welcoming space and referral hub of community information and resources, particularly for newcomer Spanish-speaking families with students in Waltham Public Schools. Housed inside centrally located McDevitt Middle School, the Welcome Center is open during after-school hours and staffed by bilingual WPY and WPS staff members. While welcome class students and their families certainly utilize this service, the Welcome Center also aims to extend our reach beyond the wraparound students in the welcome class by also serving newcomer Spanish-speaking students and families across the district. The center is meant to be an extension of the great work already happening at the district and within our organizations, and works to specifically support families with accessing school and community resources such as housing, utilities, and food assistance, medical and mental health services, enrichment and extracurricular activities, both in and out of school, information and legal services, school information and resources, and lots of other community resources. And with that, I will now pass the mic to Jill Capitani, who will share a summary of the evaluation efforts of year 3 of Wraparound.
Thanks, thank you, Madonna. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jill Capitani from the Mass Donahue Institute. We serve as the evaluation partner for the Wraparound Waltham. Today, I'm going to talk about year 3 findings from the Wraparound Waltham grant. This covers the academic year 2021 to 2022 and the following summer of 2022.
Jill, we have a request if you could speak up a little.
Sure. Excuse me. The majority of the findings from this presentation are from our annual report, and those findings come primarily from a few primary sources of data. One is individual student data, as well as who are participating in the program, as well as annual progress reports from each one of our key wraparound partners. Before I jump into the findings from the year 3 of the report, I wanted to provide a little bit of the context around the full 3 years of the grant. Across the first 3 years of the grant, Wraparound Waltham has provided services to 172 newcomer Waltham High School students. The first 2 years of the grant coincided with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic and the remote hybrid classes that were a result of the pandemic. As a result, the numbers served were relatively limited during the first 2 years of the program. The return to in-person classes, newly implemented welcome class model that Magali spoke about, led to a dramatic increase in the number of students served through the 3rd year of the grant. As you can see, there are 158 of the 172 newcomer high school students received services during the 3rd year of 2021-2022 of this grant. The vast majority of these students were first-time participants. 84% were enrolled from the new Welcome class. The remainder were referred from Wraparound, the Wraparound program during prior grant years, and continue to receive additional services during this current year. One of the first questions we ask in evaluation is the program meeting the target population? Is it reaching who it's intended to serve? And this slide talks a little bit about what are some of the key characteristics of the students who participated in year 3, the 158 students. And so this slide clearly shows that, yes, the Wraparound program is serving exactly who it was intended to reach. We find that 100% of the participants are Latinx emerging bilingual students who have recently immigrated to the United States. The vast majority of them, 89%, have immigrated from Guatemala. The other countries of origin are shown on the slide. The other point that I thought was very interesting to point out is that the majority, more than 3/4, are underclassmen, representing 9th and 10th graders. I think that's important for 2 reasons, one of which that they're being provided these services early in their academic journey at Waltham Public High School, but also that they have the opportunity to continue receiving these services for additional years, multiple years moving forward. As Magali discussed, besides, in addition to the Welcome class, Wraparound Waltham provides both academic and non-academic support services. We wanted to point out from the data we saw that nearly every Wraparound student met individually with the academic case manager to talk about based on the individual needs of the student and to receive academic case management. On average, each student met with the case manager 2 times annually, but I thought what was really interesting was some met as many as 15 times through the year. It really pointed out how much was based on the individual needs of the students. Wraparound staff held one-on-one conversations and conducted needs assessments with their students. They found that approximately 2/3 of these students would benefit from non-academic or basic needs supports. And they also identified that more than 1/3 would benefit from mental health. Based on these identified needs, we found out that Wraparound provided wraparound services, non-academic support services, and referrals to more than 100 of the Wraparound students participating in the 3rd year of this grant. As you can see by the slide, it highlights of the variety of comprehensive services being offered. The first 2 bar charts highlight services provided by 2 of Wraparound's key partners, 3 of Wraparound's key partners, partners related to mental health services and referrals for immigration services. We're going to see a little bit more information on the next slide about those partners, but it also highlights that these services are providing basic needs to not only the students, but entire families dealing with housing insecurity, food insecurity, access to healthcare, and many other services. One of the pieces I wanted to highlight, that just to draw out one more piece, is that the reach of the Wraparound program extends far beyond the number of high school students that I keep repeating the numbers on. As we can see, these services are reaching family members, and with the opening of the Welcome Center to the broader Latinx and immigrant community across Waltham. As I stated a moment ago, this slide just gives you a little bit of the numbers being served during the 3rd year of the grant. From Wraparound's key partners for mental health services and for immigration services. As we can see, Children's Charters clinicians served 34 students during the year. Doc Wayne served 18 Wraparound students during the year, as well as piloted programming at the Devitt Middle School. And TREE provided immigration advice, support, and legal representation to 48 Waltham Public School students and their families. And in addition, I wanted to also point out that Wraparound provided a wide variety of non-academic support services and referrals to more than 150 Waltham Public School families through the Wellness Center during its 1st year in operation. This helped provide, as we can see, a variety of services such as navigating the school community, receiving COVID vaccinations and related information, and access to much needed support services. Once again, food, housing, health, mental health, immigration, fuel assistance, adult education. I wanted to end the presentation talking a little bit about some of the academic outcomes. At the start of the presentation, we heard a little bit about the overarching goal of the Wraparound program. And what we heard was that was to offer academic and non-academic support services to help newcomer students stay in school, to advance grade levels, and to graduate from high school. And looking at the data from 2021 and 2022, we see very clearly that it's been very successful in promoting and supporting those goals. Looking at students who receive services during that year, during 2021, 2022, we find that 96% progressed academically at the end of the school year. What that means is six wraparound students graduated at the end of the school year, 108 advanced to the next grade level at the end of the school year, and 7 persisted in school and were placed in the same grade level in 2022, 2023. We're going to continue to follow the academic progress of these wraparound students and other wraparound students as we move into the next year of the grant. The impacts of the wraparound program certainly extend beyond these academic numbers, the academic impact numbers I've mentioned. And to provide you with a more personal look at the impact, I wanted to pass the presentation on to Alexa from WPY, who's going to provide more information.
Thank you, Jill. Hi, everyone. My name is Alexa, and I am the high school wraparound program coordinator. I co-teach the Welcome class and really kind of coordinate all the wraparound services here at the high school. Michelle, Anna, and I will now share with you a story of a student who we got to know very well and has touched our hearts. The student was actually my first student, or one of the first students that I got to work very closely during my first year here at WPY, alongside the wraparound team and other community school partners. She is resilient, intelligent, very compassionate, and holds a very warm spirit and super courageous. And I couldn't be more happy to share with you all what a leader the student has become. Please note that there's some details that we will not be sharing in order to respect and maintain the student's privacy. But also please feel free to follow along on the timeline. So around March 2022, Josue and I, Josue, who is the academic case manager, met the student during our 3rd cohort of the Welcome class last year. She had a super energetic smile and energy, but a touch of shyness, as everything was also new to her. The class, people, we were new to her, the environment. So through our interactions in the Welcome class and our regular check-ins with the student, Josue and I started to learn that she was struggling with various basic needs and was not only deeply affected by her migration journey, but also by the obstacles she encountered when she arrived to the United States. Therefore, with the student's consent, I made a referral to Children's Charter to their individual support services for emotional and mental support around April of 2022. The student expressed really wanting this support, but also was feeling very nervous as she was meeting Michelle for the first time. So we coordinated a meeting so we could all meet virtually, and there was an instant connection between the student and Michelle. I'll pass it to Michelle to share the next story.
Thank you, Alexa. Yeah, and as Alexa said, I'm Michelle Stellinger Gutierrez. I'm a bilingual therapist at Children's Charter. And so what Alexa and I ended up doing is what we call a warm handoff, where she passed the student on to me, and we found that it's most successful when the student is passed on with a trusted adult. So we all met via Zoom because we were still meeting virtually at the time. And as Alexa said, we had an instant connection. And I was able, through the period of time, the student and I met weekly via Zoom, and I was able to get to know her at a much deeper level. I was able to hear about her life back in her home country, about her neighborhood, about her favorite foods, about her family, but as well as some of the deep traumas that she was experiencing there, as well as the push factors for the reasons that she left her countries, and the pull factors for the reasons that she came to this country, with the hope of wanting to pursue a better education and a better life for her family. And this is not unique to her, because I've noticed this with many of the students that I talk to, that push and pull factor of coming to this country. I was also able to hear about her immigration journey, and process what that was like, as well as what life was like once she moved here to a new country,
with some of her family members here, but some of her family members still on the way here, and then some of her family members who were still in her home country. About being in a new school with people she has no idea who they are, a different school system, with having to move from class to class and learning math and physics and sciences in a language you don't understand. I mean, I can't imagine that, having learned physics in a language that I did understand, what it was like to learn in a language she did not understand. And on top of being able to process all of those things that were impacting her emotionally, I was also able to learn about the systemic impacts that were affecting her, from issues from immigration to housing to food insecurity. And this is where I think the Wraparound Collaborative was just so important. So we were able to wrap around her and support her with all of these different services. So I was able to reach out to Alexa, to Josue, to David LeBlanc, and be like, okay, the student was at risk of being evicted and her family was at risk of being evicted. So as a team, we connected with this group as well as Watch to be able to find her housing and secure funding for her first month of rent, as well as temporary housing between their last housing and their new housing. We were able to do a referral to Tree for their immigration needs, as well as other food resources. And so I think that it was this that was able to support her mental health well-being, as well as her physical well-being and the well-being of her whole family. And in addition to this, I also noticed how the student felt extremely isolated. She didn't really have many friends. She didn't really have many connections. And so I was trying to kind of push her and encourage her to join our group therapy. But I wouldn't lie, she was really apprehensive. She was like, how am I going to be talking to people that I don't know and share vulnerable pieces about my life? But I was able to encourage her. And then Anna and I were able to have her in our group support. So I'll pass it on to Anna.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Lutenberg, bilingual therapist at Children's Charters. I co-facilitate the group with Michelle. So that year where the student came to the group, for the first year that we were meeting face-to-face again after COVID. So we found our common area in Waltham to meet, and we were so excited to have the group in person again. So when this student came to the group, despite all the struggles that Michelle just described it, she came with such an energy and such a joyful way, and actually in a leadership skills that I don't think she knew she had. And she began to be open and be vulnerable and share her story and share the things that she has learned with Michelle about her personality. And that openness and vulnerability allowed other students to be vulnerable as well and share their story that resonated with her and connect with her and with other members in the group, and created a safe space in the group that was beautiful. And it was thanks to her leadership. She became like a mini facilitator for us. At the same time, while she was sharing all this vulnerability, she allowed her inner child to come out and enjoy herself and be silly and be happy and connect with other peers that any teenage deserves. Despite all the things she was going through, she was able to breathe and to enjoy herself. And we think that introducing the student to the world of emotional and mental health resonated with her in such a powerful way that she has shared with us more than twice that she would like to pursue a career in this field. You can imagine how much we encourage her, not because we need more Spanish speaking, but also because she has such a natural way of really being not judgmental and connecting with people, and we see her passion in this and understanding, and by doing her own journey and her work, we see that. So she continues to come to the groups with us. She continues to bring that leadership and that silliness and her own vulnerability and count on us like when she needs help, and we're there for her. And while she explores her past, her present, and where she would like to see herself in the future.
Thank you, Ana. And as you all can see, there's an arrow right on the timeline and showing that there's not an end date, right? We haven't stopped the services. We're still working with the student. We're still providing those wraparound services. That really is who we are, and that really is what we're all about. And the student really encompasses that our program. So I'll now pass it to Katie, who will talk about the changes that have happened in Wraparound for year 4.
So you can see why I said what I said at the beginning, which is that it has really been the privilege of my career to work alongside these amazing humans. I'm a little emotional. Thank you for your work. So I have lost my page. Okay, everything you've just heard about is from last school year. Actually, Alexa, could I invite you to advance the slides here, please? Everything you just heard about is from last school year. And given the successes last year, as well as some lessons learned, we have made some changes for this year that I'd like to share with you. Most of these changes actually have been in the form of an expansion. So first, after piloting a few elements of the wraparound program at McDevitt Middle School last year, we've now hired a full-time middle school wraparound program coordinator, to expand the services at McDevitt even more. In particular, we're now running a welcome class at the McDevitt Middle School with a slightly modified curriculum so that it's really responsive to the middle school context. And we are also running Doc Wayne sessions in person after school there now consistently after piloting that last year. And we have a breakfast club where the program coordinator, Dave, offers informal group support to students before school during the free breakfast that's offered. And here newcomers can come, be greeted every day by a friendly face, somebody who speaks their language, and have the opportunity to ask questions and discuss any concerns before having to navigate the school day, right? And navigating the school day, again, to Michelle's point, even if you've been in United States schools your whole life and you speak English proficiently, sometimes navigating the school day can be a lot. So imagine that experience for newcomers with all of the circumstances that they bring with them. So to know that when they get there, before navigating that day, they can see Dave, they have a safe space. Sometimes it's just silly and building relationships with each other. And sometimes it really is asking those questions that are top of mind for them. So that's our middle school expansion. Secondly, we have strengthened the mental health support services that we're offering. So as you heard a little bit, some of the mental health services in the past couple of years have been virtual for obvious reasons. So this year, everything is in person in the schools. And that is so important, just in terms of meeting the young people where they are, right? It increases engagement, it increases attendance rates. So at the middle school and high school, we're doing Children's Charter and Doc Wayne are doing group sessions after school. And then Children's Charter is also doing individual sessions during the school day. And coordinating that and making that happen and making that successful could not have happened without the incredible partnership of the Waltham Public Schools, and in particular, the guidance department, who's been just an incredible partner and critical partner in all of this work. And then lastly, Children's Charter has transitioned their work from what was called support to therapy. And we can talk more about what that means, but some of the key things are that it just means greater access to the network of resources and services that Children's Charter offers, in particular access to on-call services for the young people that they're working with. So very, very valuable and important change. And then lastly, we have also expanded the capacity of our Welcome Center. You heard about the 150 families that were served through the center last year. And that was with very limited hours that the center was open. So this year we actually hired in August a full-time Welcome Center coordinator. That's allowed us to double the number of hours that the center is open, and that's Marlene Godinez. It's allowed us to double the number of hours that the center is open. And also allowed us to have more of a presence in the community. So you're likely to find Marlene at a lot of community events. So again, the center is at McDevitt Middle School, centrally located, but then we're also bringing the center where events are happening and where families are already congregating. And an additional piece that's new this year is that our partners, the Right to Immigration Institute, are actually hosting bi-monthly office hours at the Welcome Center. Again, just for greater accessibility, greater visibility. And it is truly our hope, and we've started to see this already, that all of these changes are going to lead to, again, increased visibility, increased accessibility, and ultimately increased reach and impact for the students and families that we're serving. So that concludes the formal part of our presentation. We got started a little bit later than we had hoped, so I think we probably could take maybe 1 or 2 questions if there are any. Oh, yes, Terry.
Can we get a copy of these slides?
Yes, oh yeah, Terry was serving as a greeter earlier, thank you. So, and some of you also may have missed, we're gonna send these slides. We're gonna send a copy of the actual report that Jill and Sophie put together. And if it worked out, the recording of this meeting will send that as well. So yes, thank you for asking. We will send all of that. Good question. Yes.
School, I mean, is that a problem if you're doing the parent sessions like after school? Probably, I don't know if there's a bus for them.
That's a great question. So the schools do run late buses about an hour or so after the school day. So a lot of students will take advantage of that. Some may be in walking distance, and if they're older students, they may drive. I think those are the combination of ways, but I think there is a heavy reliance on that after school late bus. You know, and that even that, right? What is the late bus? What time does it come? Which one do I get on? Where does it leave off? Those are also the kinds of things that our staff and our partners are supporting students with, so they know how to navigate and access those resources. So our team is going to stick around for another 10-15 minutes if folks are interested in having more informal one-on-one conversations. But before we break, I do want to just invite you to stay in touch and stay engaged. And I'm going to give you 3 very specific ways to do that. The first is to join us for our partner celebration in May. This is happening at Bentley University, and it's an opportunity to do even more of this in sort of a more celebratory way. So we showcase all of the partners that WPY works with, so not just for Wraparound, but some of our other programs as well. But Wraparound will be heavily featured this year, and this is our first time publicly announcing that our Community Impact Award this year will actually be going to Children's Charter. So celebrate. There's music, there's food, there's dancing. You can also, as Terry was asking about, you can take a deeper dive into all of this by accessing the full report, which is accessible through this QR code and this bit.ly, and we will also send you the link. And then lastly, please feel very free and encouraged to just reach out. Again, we'll send all of this, but feel free to take a snapshot. These are the contacts at each of our key partners. And I can know that I can speak on behalf of all of them to say that we welcome your inquiries, your engagement, your questions, and your partnership. So we very much look forward to staying in touch. Thank you.